So this tutorial is going to show us how to do the keyframe exercise in Adobe After Effects, and it's also a basic introduction to Adobe After Effects. So I'm going to start my tutorial with a search for a spaceship, and I've put in vector spaceship PNG. Now I want the PNG. Hopefully we've got some transparency because I don't want a white box around it. So what we're looking for here is the lovely gray and white squares that tell us there's transparency. I really like this one, so I'm going to just save this image. And very important with Adobe After Effects, I don't just save it to the desktop, I put it into a folder. I'll call it Keyframes, and this will be my Keyframes project. Retro Rocket Vector, that's not a bad name, so we'll save it in there. Now I'm going into Adobe After Effects. Notice when you install Adobe After Effects you get the After Effects program. Current version is CC 2015, and you also have the After Effects render engine. Don't get confused, we don't want the render engine, we want the actual After Effects application. So we load it up, and before we do anything else we save our project. Well, we'll go new project, and we'll save this project with a save as to our project file, and I'll call it Keyframes project. Now we have our Adobe After Effects project and our Retro Rocket PNG in the one folder, and we never move things in or out of these folders. Well, we're in, yes, but we never move them out. Everything that we want in this project, we copy it first to this folder. So now I can just drag my PNG file into my project, and I've got the Retro Rocket in my project now. Now to make it to make some video, we need a composition. The composition is the video part. So we go new composition. I'm going into the HD range here, and I'm going to go full HD, which is the last one on the HD list there. If for some reason you were perhaps wanting to make a smaller one, we have the smaller resolutions, or even a custom resolution there. HDTV, everything's fine. Just check the start time code should be on 0, and the duration, set it to 10 seconds. For this first exercise, 10 seconds is enough. I'm going to leave the background color as black, although there's really no reason why I couldn't make it another color if I wanted, but black is fine for me, and I'm just going to go OK. Actually, if I want to get back to those settings, I can go to Composition Settings, and I actually want to just change the name Keyframe. So my composition is called Keyframe. Now that I've got my video, you can see it in here. I can use the Command plus and the Command minus keys to zoom in or out on my video. There's nothing on it at the moment. And so I'm going to bring my Retro Rocket down into my composition. Now I have a Retro Rocket, and actually the first thing I'm going to do is rotate it with the rotation tool and just make it a bit more on the side, like that. Okay, back to the black arrow, and that's fine. Now, if it's really large, of course, just shrink it down to a size. But what we want is we want to be able to move the rocket from one side of the stage to the other. And the way we do that is to open up the layer, open up the transform options, and these are the different properties we can animate with keyframes. In here we have a timeline and a playback head, so it goes from 0 to 10 seconds. And so this position here is 1 second. If we zoom in on the timeline, it's still on 1 second, but it actually says 100F. That's 1 second and 0 frames. Remember, 30 frames per second, so 15 is like halfway, and 30 frames is a full second. So on frame 0, I'm going to make a keyframe. I click on the little time stopwatch and it starts making keyframes. Now, once you start making keyframes, you can move it and it will make keyframes in other locations. So I'm moving along the timeline to 1 second, and I'm going to drag the rocket across to the other side. Now if I go back, that's my first little animation working using keyframes. So let's say I want to bring him back. He goes across the stage and I want to bring him back in the next 2 seconds. So I'll put my cursor on 2 seconds and use the arrow tool to place him somewhere in the middle. Unfortunately, he's flying fine, but then he starts flying backwards. So how can I turn him around at this point? Well, one way to easily turn him is to just put in a negative value for what was there before. So now he's kind of going the right way. By the way, depending on what sort of image you have, you might need to unlock that and go negative positive, or you might find your car is facing the right way, but the car is now upside down. Anyway, this is working fine for me, except that now at the beginning he's flying backwards. So I need to use some keyframes to make this work. So I'm going to click on Scale and make a keyframe. And on this first one, I want that to be positive 100. So he's facing the right way to here, and then I want him to turn around and go negative 100. And I want him to stay facing that way till the end. But let's have a look at what just happened. Now, he's no longer flying straight. He's actually scaling down and then scaling back up. That's not what I want. So instead of him scaling down to 0 in the middle, what I want is for him to stay at 100% until he's ready to turn. So I'm going to copy this keyframe, Command C, and paste it just before the other one. Let me go a little closer so we can see that. So this keyframe says 100%. This keyframe here says 100%. So now he stays at 100% until he comes to this point here, and then he turns around and comes back. So, looking good. Let's keep going with a few other things that we could do with our keyframes. For example, we could go to the 3 second mark and say we want to scale him. So I'm going to put another keyframe here to scale him, and on 3 seconds we can scale up to 500% maybe. And while we're scaling, we could also take the opacity from 100% to 0, for example. And now he gets bigger and sort of vanishes. We can also introduce another spaceship. So I'm just going to have, once he vanishes, I'm actually not interested in him so much anymore. I'm going to bring in another spaceship. So I'm just getting another spaceship here. And now, of course, we don't want this spaceship sitting there from the beginning. We're actually going to drag him so that he doesn't appear until the other one's finished. And then we're going to bring this guy on. Now, I want to, well, we can do a couple of things with him. Why don't we try rotating him? Now, if I just click rotate 0 and then 1 second later rotate 1, then he will rotate 1 time, but he's rotating around his center point, which is not that interesting. What would be more interesting would be if we could get him to rotate around a point here somewhere. So we can do that by shifting the anchor point. So I'm going to just shift him away from the anchor point, which is in his center, sort of down here somewhere. And then I'm actually going to shift him kind of into the frame. And now he's animating very nicely. Wait, he's actually animating backwards. So I'm going to go in here and turn that into -1, and let's have a look now. So now he's going around. So this gives you an idea of the kind of things you can do with keyframe animation, and this is your first exercise. Two more things I want to show you. One is putting a sound effect. Now, I don't have a lot of sounds on this computer, but let me just do a .mp3 search, and I find I have, what do I have? All right, I've got this sound here, which is fine. Actually, what's this one? Okay, that's a very friendly sound. So I'm going to grab this sound and copy it, this music, over to my keyframes and put a copy of it in here. Once it's in here, then of course I can just drag it into my project, and from there it's very simple. I can just drag it into my composition. So now I have a lovely little soundtrack. Let me just say something about the sound effects. If we look online for free sound effects, there are many sites where you can download free sound effects. Freesfx.uk has a good selection, well organized, of different kinds of sounds, industrial, music tracks, public places, technology, sport, vehicles and transportation, machinery, etc. They have sound effects and they have music, and it's usually quite good quality music in genres like comedy, country, drum and bass, electronica, that kind of thing. You can become a member for no cost, and it costs nothing to download these free samples. So this is perfect for what we're doing. Don't go putting a Lady Gaga music video onto your examples. We want to upload these to YouTube so that we can see them, and YouTube will block them if you use copyrighted music. So be aware, for the sound effects and for the music, there are plenty of sites like this one that are free and are good quality music and sound effects. So Now, the last thing I wanted to do was to show you how to turn this into a video. At the moment, this is an After Effects project, and the only thing we can watch it on is After Effects. So we want to turn it into a video. You might think we would go save as a video, but no. We have to go to the composition and add to the render queue. Now, when that happens, it goes from the composition window to the render queue window down here. This we leave the best settings, lossless, log errors only. This is fine. The important one is here. We have to specify where to save it. Now, I suggest in each project just include a new folder and call it MOVs, because they'll be in the QuickTime.mov format. So the MOVs are here. This will be called keyframe.mov, which is fine. We save that. It's now outputting to keyframe.mov, and we can click render. It takes a few seconds to render it. And now we can check in our MOVs folder and that is a proper MOV file that can be uploaded to YouTube, shared with social media, etc. Anything can play this MOV file. This is then the first exercise, to use keyframes and to experiment with, what you can do creating a little 10-second movie using keyframes with these various transform properties. Have fun, and I look forward to seeing what you produce.